Yo, what up, a-holes? Thank you for tuning into the Holistic A-Hole Podcast. My name is Erik Levi, and I'm the Holistic A-Hole, the mommy blogger with balls, the inconvenient truth of health. How's it going? How's your October going? I hope it's going great. Maybe you're doing Sober October, which is pertinent to today's episode because we're going to talk about good old Joe Rogan and a recent Joe Rogan podcast where there was a debate, several debates actually, between a whole bunch of doctors and scientists and researchers, and it gets kind of interesting. And it gets a little fuzzy and a little hairy, and people have been asking me what my thoughts were on this podcast. So I wanted to break down my thoughts in a somewhat coherent way and let you know what I think of these, freaking health debates that are going on, because they're not just happening on the Rogan show. They're happening all over the internet, and I've got some thoughts on them, and I want to share them with you. But before I do, I just want to say what's up. If you are returning, thanks for coming back. And if you're new to the podcast, make sure you take a hot second and hit the subscribe button right there in your podcast player, whether it's a iPhone, an Android, an iPad, a laptop, whatever you're listening to this on. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. That way it pops up in your feed every time it comes out. And then, take a gander over at my old social media accounts. You can find the Holistic A-Hole on Facebook. You can join the Holistic A-Holes Facebook group. You can find the Holistic A-Hole page there. Twitter at Holistic A-Hole. Instagram at Holistic A-Hole. And you know what's fun on Instagram? When people take a screenshot. If you take a screenshot of the podcast playing in your phone or whatever, post it on your Instagram story, tag the at Holistic A-Hole, and I'll send you a little fun message showing my gratitude for you being so grateful, or not being grateful, or you know what I'm saying. So let's talk about these recent podcasts that have come out, produced by good old Joe Rogan. And I was actually looking forward to the let me start off by saying this. So Joe Rogan had a couple podcasts. This would be at the end of September. So I don't know when this is coming out, but these podcasts were at the end of September. And I'll tell you, man, I have never looked forward more to a podcast than I was when I heard that Chris Kresser would be debating Kahn. And then I didn't know about the other podcast he was doing. There was another debate podcast the next day with Layne Norton, who's a bodybuilder and a researcher, scientist. And then Dom D'Agostino, who I believe is a doctor. He's one of the keto guys, that's his big thing. Dom D'Agostino is a PhD, an assistant professor at the Department of Molecular Pharmacology, and Layne Norton is a renowned prep physique coach and bodybuilder, powerlifter, yada yada yada. These guys all know what they're talking about, and I love Joe Rogan. I love the podcast. I listen to not every one of them, but I'd say probably 1 and 2 or 3. He seems to have the most interesting guests of any podcast. He must be the #1 podcast in all of iTunes. And of course, the Holistic A-Holes, breathing down his back, coming down, giving him the business, competing. Top 10 iTunes, not even close. But it's a really big podcast, and he's got a huge reach. And week after week, I hear him, interviewing these, health authorities and people in the sciences. And I've learned so much from the podcast. And I would say in some ways it's probably made me a lot dumber, because there is a lot of there's a lot of bro science on there, and there is a lot of just peacocking, from a lot of these quote unquote health authorities, and people are throwing numbers and studies and statistics and anecdotes and all this stuff around. And if nothing else, what I've learned listening to the Joe Rogan podcast is that if somebody sounds like they know what they're talking about, you just go with it. Nobody's researching any of the stuff they're talking about unless you're happy, healthy vegan. unless you're a vegan YouTuber, then you are on the ball. And by the way, if there's one I guess praise I have to give to the vegan YouTubers, they do this better than anybody else. They pull up the studies that definitely confirm their confirmation bias. But I don't know where they have access to what databases they have. I can only get through PubMed and Google, but apparently every vegan YouTuber is dropping thousands of dollars a year to have access to, full medical journals. And I got to give it to them. They do their work. So the podcast I want to talk about specifically was the Joel Kahn versus Chris Kresser debate. Rogan has had Kresser on several times, I think. Definitely at least once, but several times. And I would say probably him, along with probably Dom D'Agostino, probably Rhonda Patrick, and several of these other kind of like functional medicine doctors. I would say maybe they've given a huge boost to the functional medicine community. This isn't a thing you heard about even a couple years ago. Like, I started kind of getting into the world of like functional, not even like functional medicine, but just doing stuff like, focusing on like adding coconut oil and thinking about ketones and, intermittent fasting. And then somehow I ended up as a vegan. And, but I've been kind of like aware of this stuff, specifically microbiome topics for probably about 3 years now. And it was about the same time that, this stuff really started, Joe started talking more and more about this, probably over the last 2 or 3 years. And it's just, now it's like one of those things where it's like keto is the fad diet. Everyone's sucking down coconut oil. Everyone's looking for grass-fed butter. Everyone's trying to get their broccoli sprouts and sulforaphane and avoiding carbs like the plague. I'm sure he's even got people into bow hunting who would have never bow hunted before. There's a lot of, if you listen to Joe Rogan enough, there's quite a bit of anti-vegan sentiment going on. I think over the last year, Joe has kind of softened his approach to vegans. I know a couple years ago, this is when I was doing vegan, he was totally intolerant. And I would guess that's probably because he lives in LA. And first of all, LA people, awful. Second of all, LA vegans, worse than regular LA people. Yeah, so he's got that just double whammy of just shit person breathing down their throat, and it's just got to be the worst when you're a when you're a huge podcaster, when you have so much reach online, so many people just talking shit to you on Twitter and Instagram and leaving negative comments on your iTunes podcast feed. It's got to be just very irritating, and vegans are probably the top at being able to irritate people. Trust me, I know I was that guy. But I would say in the last year, Rogan has been a little bit more tolerant of vegans. I think he's stepping back a little bit in this, he's recognizing like the horrors of industrial agriculture. He mentions this a lot. He's talking a lot about, just the ethical parts of being a vegan, which is, it's hard to argue that side. But definitely as far as nutrition goes, he is on the side of the functional medicine people, the high fat, the keto people. Although I don't think he's a keto guy himself because he eats, so much like protein or whatever. Either way, I was looking forward to this debate because I love Joel Kahn, Dr. Joel Kahn. When I was a vegan, towards kind of like the tail end, I really got into his stuff. I heard him on several podcasts. Very well-spoken cardiologist out of Detroit. Knows his shit, knows his studies to a freaking T. And if you need a vegan fight to go down, this guy is your goddamn foot soldier. This dude, fearless, definitely has a chip on his shoulder when it comes to the vegans, or helping the vegans out. Just a good dude to have in the vegan camp. But then you got a guy like Chris Kresser, who I don't know as much about, but I do know a lot of people in the circles that I follow, more of the functional medicine stuff, that's their guy. And so I was looking forward to this debate because finally, I don't have to listen to another podcast where it's like a keto guy talking about the failures of veganism, or Joe just like harping about the failures of veganism or the shortcomings of veganism. At the same time, I don't have to listen to vegans toot their own horn about how much more superior their diet is and their lifestyle is, when I know for a fact, I know from my own anecdotal evidence that it is absolutely not. I know I got a lot of vegans who listen to this podcast. I got nothing but love for you. I've been there in your shoes. But, when you put this, I guess, data, not even data, when you just put people on these diets up against each other, the non-vegans, whether it's paleo or keto or carnivore, or just being a normal person with an evenly distributed, spectrum of macronutrients, they exceed what the vegans go through. Vegans, you can show me your blood work all day, you can show me your cholesterol all day, show me your skin problems, show me your hair problems, show me your depression, show me your gut problems, show me your diarrhea or your constipation. Show me this stuff, because this is what talks more to me than blood tests now. And so this was kind of what I felt was the heart of the matter in the debate between Joel Kahn and Chris Kresser. From the get-go, man, it was just quoting study after study after study after study. And man, it went 4 hours. I didn't feel like it was 4 hours, probably because I was listening to it on 1.8 speed or whatever. But it went by fast because this is stuff I'm interested in. But I would imagine to like the normal person, this got very confusing, because what the complaint against vegan research is that it's all epidemiological, which basically means it's all built off of like questionnaires. There's these studies that they send these questionnaires out to people, participate in these studies. It could be like the nurses' health study, the Framingham Heart study. I mean, there's just study after study where they do this. And then they'll ask you like, hey, how much meat did you consume in the last week? Was it more than 5 servings? Was it less than 5 servings? Was it 1 serving? Was it 2? And they could be more specific. I'm just throwing gum against the wall, with what I know to be the makeup of these tests. I mean, they can be very broad, they can be very specific, but still, you're relying on people's memories. And in fact, there's studies that show that people don't remember things very well. You just lose your memory after a while. If you asked me right now to tell you what I ate last week, I could probably give you like ballpark. I could probably give you like what I ate, but the portion, the amount, the speed, the serving size, I have no idea. And shame on you if you think you do know, because you don't. You don't. Why'd I say shame on you? That's so stupid. Whatever. You don't remember. It's impossible. Okay, unless you've just been sitting in a quarantined room for the last week and all you remember is the last thing you did, which was what you ate last week. You just don't know. It's just not how the human brain works, and there's too much room for error with it. And a lot of these, I don't want to say pro-vegan studies, but like more anti-animal product studies. This is like what they're based off of. And true, they'll take, randomized control trials. But here's the problem. Like when you talk about health in terms of these quote-unquote evidence-based things, it's like there's too many factors to control for in a human study, okay? That's why so much anti-meat and anti-fat and anti-dairy science is, done in petri dishes. It's done with mice and rats, because you can't control all the factors for humans, Yeah, you can be a human and you can go eat ribeye every single day, okay? And maybe you might get cancer. But how do we know that it was the ribeye specifically that gave you cancer? Okay? Cancer is such a complicated phenomenon that to say it was one thing that you ate or didn't eat It's absolutely preposterous. You just can't do it, okay? And there's no study that has been able to do that. There's just none. Yeah, there's a study that will come out that will say, the more cheese you eat, the more likely you are to get colon cancer. Okay, well, who was in that study? Oh, sometimes it's people that have already had a history of cancer. And then they'll get those people and they'll say, well, we serve these people, these people ate 3 or 4 servings of cheese a day for a year and 40% of them died within 5 years. So we can conclude that cheese will cause cancer. But you don't know, did those people have cancer already? Did they have high risks of cancer in their genetics? Did they smoke? Did they drink? Did they not get enough sleep? Did they have excessively, stressful lives? These are also all very big causes of cancer. And no study that I've seen, and granted, I have not read a lot of studies, but at least to my knowledge, there is no study out there that has been able to control for all these factors. So when, What the Health comes out and says that eating an egg is the equivalent of 5 cigarettes, granted, when I first watched What the Health, I was a vegan and I was on board, but now just to think about that, it blows my mind that this is a thing that vegans run with, and they put it in a movie and they put it on Netflix, and this is like the cornerstone documentary of many people who went vegan in the last year. Is eating an egg the equivalent to smoking 5 cigarettes? I don't think it is, because if you smoke cigarettes, there is a clear link between cigarette toxicity and cancer and dying. Mostly because it's not just the nicotine, it's the other 90 or 100 or 300, whatever it is, chemicals they put in the cigarettes. So you're going to tell me the one ingredient of the egg white and the egg yolk is the equivalent to all of the nicotine and tar and, Jesus Christ, asbestos or whatever else is in cigarettes? You're going to tell me that's the same thing? It's absolutely not. And there's no data that confirms it. There might have been a study that came out that said eating eggs because of the choline, raises this biomarker, and then maybe that's the same biomarker that cigarettes cause, but they're just not. They're not in the same. They're not in the same realm, And so this is really the shortcoming of a lot of vegan science. But then you look at the shortcoming of the other side, and it's even more. There's not really, to me, convincing evidence that meat doesn't cause cancer or dairy doesn't cause cancer or heart disease or anything. The fact is, and, I hate to say it, but if you actually go on to Happy Healthy Vegan, their page on YouTube, they actually break down one of the studies that Kresser was quoting. And in fact, the study actually confirmed, because he was trying to say that there's no science that says that eggs cause cancer. I don't know the exact study he was talking about, but the study he was talking about, they show on that video that, in fact, the study he was quoting actually showed that eggs did cause cancer. So, there's a lot of shoddy science like that. I've read Nina Teicholz twice. She ends her book. She drops the mic with this huge 2010 meta-analysis led by this guy, Ronald Krauss. He was like the main scientist on it. And he says that, there is absolutely no data to confirm the hypothesis that meat causes heart disease or cancer or anything like this. And then you go to that guy, you go to the study, and you see the guy was just in the pocket of the beef council and the egg board. And, that's most of these pro-meat studies. They're funded by industry, And it was funny because in the next interview that Rogan did with Layne and Dom, Layne was very transparent. He was like, yeah, man, I'm a scientist and I have done these studies and I have received funding from the Beef Council and the Egg Board. I've taken their money. I've met these people, but it doesn't taint my science. Look, man, you can scream that to the rafters. Nobody believes it. I don't believe it. Maybe you, yes, but some of these bigger studies, I just don't buy it. I don't buy, also the fact that there's 100,000 studies that get printed every year, There's there's 300,000 or 400,000 studies or 600,000 studies that you don't even see, because those are the trials, those are the groups that didn't make it past, the initial screening phase, right? They didn't elicit the result they wanted in the study, so they don't ever print it. Yeah, they'll pay the scientists, they'll pay the money to get it all done, but it just didn't give them the result they wanted, so they'll never publish the study. And there's so many studies like that. And then finally, they publish the study that gives them the thing that shows, oh, look, eggs make you live longer, or cheese, eating 3 servings of cheese with your coffee and a piece of celery will make you live to 120. Or, if you drink 3 glasses of milk and, chase it down with 4 strips of bacon, you can beat colon cancer. Guess who all that's funded by? You got it. Industry, or somebody industry adjacent, or some think tank group. It's all just the most tainted bullshit ever. So after listening to these guys go back and forth, I mean, this was the record that just kept playing because, it just got silly at some point, and I really felt that Rogan was siding with Kresser, maybe not. Maybe a little inadvertently, maybe he wasn't consciously trying to do it, but he's a freaking bow hunter. He brags about the elk and shit that he eats, and the boar and the fucking deer and all this shit that he kills and eats. He's a freaking meat eater. He's not going to side with the vegans. He does not like vegans. He probably likes people who are vegan, but he doesn't like the vegan movement. So I think maybe subconsciously or inadvertently just started siding with Kresser, and I felt there was a bit of a gang up on Joel Kahn. I think Kahn handled it very professionally, but at the same time, I don't feel like anything that he said was so convincing as to make somebody think that, okay, the vegan is the clear-cut winner in this debate. And I hate to say, do we need a winner because we're talking about people's health? But yes, we need a freaking winner. We need somebody to say, we want somebody to tell us, is meat right? Is it not? Should we eat it? Should we not? Is it going to cause cancer? There's just no... The conclusion I've come to is there is no link that any animal product, meat, dairy, whatever it is can be solely responsible for heart disease, cancer, or diabetes. It's just not. There's just too many other factors that play into those diseases. There's people who can live to 100 years old and eat meat or chicken. There's people who can live to 100 years old and eat that stuff and only be able to do that because they have modern medical technology. There's people who eat, fish a couple times a week and live to 100. There's people who eat cheese a couple times a week. I don't think you should eat that stuff every day. I think you should definitely mix it up. I think you definitely need, a good array of vegetables and fruits. Grains, I'm not feeling you anymore. Sorry. Pasta, quinoa, you can suck a dick. Brown rice, white rice, yellow rice, red rice, doesn't matter. It's all garbage. Bread, get it out. Just do everything you can to get out, but have it a little bit here and there. Don't be afraid of it. And that's the biggest lesson I learned from this. Don't live your life based on what some health guru tells you is the right or wrong thing to eat. And look, man, hey, I am looking myself right in the mirror right now when I say this. I am actually looking in the mirror, pointing at myself, because I've been this guy. You can go back to old episodes and listen to me tell you why you shouldn't eat meat, why you shouldn't drink dairy, why you shouldn't, okay? Hey, man, this is part of the process. I'm learning, all right? I am not afraid to change my mind on shit, and you shouldn't be either. The dumbest part about our society right now is the rigidness and how everybody has their heels dug in to one side or another. Sometimes you just get affected by a thing. Sometimes you just live life and things happen, and you change your perspective, and that is not just totally fine. That is how you should live your life, okay? I'm not anybody to tell anybody how they should live their life, but you should live your life in a very open way to where you can change your mind when you have the information available. If you just stick to your guns and are like, dug your heels into some camp and you refuse to, this is the Democrat, Republican, vegan, keto, whatever it is, just be flexible, be fluid, and be welcoming to new ideas. So I guess without rambling on too much about this debate, the biggest thing I got out of it was neither side made a clear-cut made clear-cut proof that either side was better for you. Is it good to be a vegan? You do it and you see how you feel. Is it good to be keto? Do it and see how you feel. Because in the end, it's only your body. Only your body can tell you what is right and what is wrong. You know, the problem with these diets are you're relying on somebody else to tell you how you're supposed to eat. You have so much DNA. You have so many cells. You have so many genes. You have so many cofactors that go along with your health that, you know, somebody who's sitting in California cannot tell a person who lives in New Jersey what they're supposed to eat. Because you don't know each other, you don't have the same environment, you don't have the same access to the same foods, you don't have the access to the same quality of air, quality of water. I mean, the list goes on and on. Not to mention the freaking stress itself. The stress is what kills you. I can't say this enough. Like, I can't emphasize this enough. Stress, even independent of food, will kill you before food will kill you. Cigarettes will kill you. Drinking will kill you. Hard drugs will kill you. Fucking pharmaceuticals will kill you. Food, if eaten in moderation, if eaten, you know, with the right whole food macronutrient distribution, will not kill you. Now, if you sit around eating burgers and french fries every day, if you eat, let me scale this back a little bit. Trans fat will kill you. Cholesterol, let it go. It's just the most widely misunderstood. Is it a molecule, atom, nutrient, whatever it is? It's the most misunderstood part of the whole discussion. So just let it go, okay? Have all the cholesterol you want. It actually is very beneficial for your body, okay? In another episode, I'll tell you why. But for now, just don't stress about this stuff. Be a vegan, be keto, be paleo, be whatever you want. But don't let other people tell you what's right for your body. So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I would love to know what you think about these Joe Rogan debates. I know I didn't really touch much on the other debate that went down, but I do find that one also very interesting. Keto versus high carb, or keto versus non-keto, whatever it is. Maybe we'll get back into it and talk about it on another ep. But we gotta wrap it up. We only have so much time. So thank you all for listening. Let me know what you think. Hit me up on them socials. Shoot me a tweet at HolisticAhole. Shoot me an Instagram at HolisticAhole. And if you do nothing else here, make sure you go and join the Holistic A-Holes Facebook group where all the good dialogue's going down. So I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks so much for listening. Make sure you share this with people you love, and I will talk to you soon. Peace.